Hey y'all, my name's Tyson, and today let's explore some selection tips and tricks. And with selections, let's look at some of the default options that are part of the native SketchUp toolset, and a little, one or two SketchUp extensions that can help us with some other things. And we'll just work our way through a few examples, hopefully that will give you some insights into different ways you can use selections. But let's jump in. All right, the first thing that we should mention, this isn't an introduction to selection, so you should know about single click, double click, triple click options, as well as selection windows. But what we want to do is explore some of those in combination. If you're not familiar with selections, though, please see some of our other videos or our campus course that will cover the basics of selections. Let's start here. We want to create a follow me path profile here, and we could, using the modifier key, work our way around selecting different edges. But there is a quicker way to do this. For example, I could simply double click on this, which selects the edges, and then using modifier keys, drag a selection window that will subtract those bottom edges and that surface, and then use follow me and get the results. Even if we didn't have this interior shape, it's still helpful because we could double click and then again hold modifier keys to subtract the pieces we don't want, and we're quickly left with that selection again, or follow me. That's one, I really like this one a lot. Double click to select the surface and its bounding edges, and then remove or sometimes add to that selection. So that's the first tip, is just remember that you can double click, select all the bounding edges, and then refine that selection. All right, so let's say we've got this tray that we're modeling, 3D printing, doing something with, and we want to add a bunch of chamfers to it. Now there are some extensions that would do this pretty quickly, but in our case, let's say we want something like this. Now that will work for this interior, but what about up here if we wanted to chamfer these edges or the bottom? In that case, what we need to do, let's make a copy of this. I'll use the flip tool to flip this and move it down. Oh, you know what? I want to flip this one more time in the blue axis. Then we'll move it down. And if we look at this, we need another one here. So I'll just bring it over. Again, flip this. About the red axis is what I need. Move it into place, and one more copy down here. Flip it. Okay, so you can see our setup here. Now, depending on how we approach this, we could cause some problems, and let me show you what I mean. The first one should be easy. I can select the surface, go to follow me. Done. This one is harder. We've covered this sometimes before. Sometimes it's helpful for us to take, for example, this surface, and we want to hide it so that we can use follow me in here. But by hiding it, it makes our edge selection difficult. So let's instead say we're going to copy this upward, and now I'll hide this, and now we can use this surface and say follow me. That works fine. Let's try that again. We use this surface and say follow me. Okay, well, if I unhide, we have a bit of a problem because we use that same surface. Sometimes it will not work well on this interior edge. And if we undo a step, that's probably because it used the outside edge here, and that didn't conform as well. So what we need to do is isolate this inside one. So let me undo those steps and make one more copy of this upward. And here we need an outside edge. So I'm going to erase one of these edges, select this middle surface and delete it, and then triple click 1, 2, 3 to select all connected geometry, delete. And it'll be easy to do this bottom one. We'll select one edge, 1, 2, 3, delete. You see what that's left us with here? So now we have our path that will be really easy to use and should work correctly. So now I'll hide again using a keyboard shortcut, hiding, and then I will 1, 2, 3, select that inside, follow me, and that looks clean. And then 1, 2, 3 to select all of the out, follow me, and unhide that top surface. That looks much better. And just by understanding that we can copy, isolate some edges, and then quickly select those edges with a triple click, will also make it easy to delete those now that we don't need them anymore. This last one, we could hide, select, follow me, unhide. So that, again, just another little example of follow me, and that if you understand selections and how to quickly isolate or create edges, it can be helpful when you're working with a case like this. All right, here, what we have is, if I look at this bench in X-ray mode, we've got all of the joinery that's built into here. So if I pull these aside, what we've got are a bunch of loose tenons. And let's say that we're creating this, and in this example, maybe we want to create kind of some interesting illustrations as we talk about how we might build this bench. So the first thing I want to bring attention to is the joinery, these dominoes, these loose tenons. There's multiple ways that we could do that. We want to select these. One of the ways that we could do that is, let's just draw a selection window like this, because we want to grab enough of the pieces. And then I'm just going to move this over to the side as a copy. So these are all still here, but these are components. And one of the things that we can do with the native tools is select instances of components. So it was easy to erase out the bench, arms and stuff. So I'm going to right click on any one of these and say select all instances. Now this is native to SketchUp. What we're going to get into in a moment is that there's also some options down here. These options are part of the selection toys, and we're just going to touch on those briefly, but for right now, this is just native. Right click on one of these. I'm going to say select all instances, and that's going to select all those instances. Now they're not all the same, but one of the things that could be useful here, another selection method, is to use tags for selection. So I'm going to create a new tag, and once I've selected these, I will put those on that tag. And just to be sure that they're properly moved, I'm actually going to hide this tag. And that way, when we select all instances and move them to that tag, they should hide. So select all instances, move them, and we can quickly work our way through. And now we've got all of those loose tenons properly assigned to a nice tag. Let me delete those extra ones we don't need, except for, let's just make it easy to pick one of these. Now again, so let's say we want to bring attention to these loose tenons in this X-ray mode. So I'm going to select this one, right click and say select all with the same tag. Now remember, these are not all the same component, but because we just put them all on the same tag, oh, fantastic. They're all selected. I do want to erase this one. Oh, you know what? I just lost my selection. Darn it. Except, haha, one of the extensions that is useful for selections is called selection memory, and it will remember the last selection we just had. So cycle previous selections. If I hit that, oh wow, I didn't lose my selection, even though I erased that one and thought I did. So with all of these dominoes selected, I could apply a different color. In fact, let me just move these back, let's say 5 feet. We paint them and then move them back 5 feet. So that definitely draws attention to all of the joinery going on in this bench. Now, just to explore some of the other options in the extensions we have, we're going to kind of keep playing with this idea that we want to bring attention to some of the different aspects of this bench. So let's do the same thing again. I'm going to move one of these to the side so I can select all with the same tag. And this time I'm going to move a copy of these back. And again, let me just say something like 5 feet so I know where they are. I don't need that one or that one. In this case, I'm going to group these together and then go inside here, select all of these, and explode them. And I'm doing that so that I can use the selection toys extension. And that gives us, based on what you have chosen, you get different things here. But I want to select only the edges. And that would allow me either to do something like this, where I can copy just those edges back here. Or if I had this selection, I could select only the faces and then hit delete. And it looks like I missed one or two. But another thing, again, there's lots of ways to reach the same destination, just different paths we could take. I could select, again, all of this, right click, select only edges. And then using the shift key, because shift is plus or minus, it basically would reverse. So I've got all of the edges selected, and let's say I want to select the faces. Now I'll drag a selection window around all of that. It should reverse the selection to just the faces. I can hit delete. The reason I'm doing this is, again, let's just say for whatever reason, I want to create a different type of highlight. So I'll pick a nice bright yellow color, and I want to paint this group yellow. Now that doesn't show up. I need to go into my styles, and instead of color all the same, I want to say color by material, and that should change this. Now, even though I painted the group, these are still that pinkish red color because that's left over from when we copied them from here before. So I'm going to paint these the default color. and then they'll take on that group color. And all of that was just to move it back, say 5 feet. Somehow I got it a little bit out of place, but that's okay. Easy to move it back into place. And in fact, for these to really show up visually, maybe I'll just move them up by 1 millimeter and out by 1 millimeter. Now again, maybe that's just ridiculous. We don't need that, but it is a way to sort of draw those edges, extra attention to the edges. Let's do one more example of this. Let's say over here. So I'm going to copy. And in this case, I don't want the joinery. I want to just have, let's say this assembly. I want to draw attention to this assembly. So I could start drawing selection windows around the joinery, or in this case, it would be easier to 1, 2, 3. There's only 5 of these members. That way I've got those selected, hit delete. Okay. Now we're going to do a similar thing. So let's say I want to grab this, and I want to emphasize just sort of the wireframe, the edges of this. So I'm going to ungroup it or explode it and select this again. Now this is interesting. When we exploded this into one object, if I look at this, for whatever reason, we lost a face here. And if I draw that back in, we also have this selection that's selecting sort of both of these faces, but one of them is reversed. This is another useful tip. Have a keyboard shortcut, or at least easy access to turning your hidden geometry on and off. Right now this all selects as 1, but if I turn hidden geometry on, that will put those edges in there, and now it's easier to select these separately, right click, reverse faces. Now I have the correct faces. We're actually going to get rid of the faces, so that won't matter really for our purposes, but another thing just to keep in mind here, if I select this with hidden geometry showing, and then go select only edges, it's going to preserve the edges that were shown. That's not exactly what I want in this case. So I'm going to undo that and turn hidden geometry back off. Instead, I want to select only, and that's what Selection Toys does. It basically selects or deselects. It's a way to refine your selection by a number of things. We're really just touching on the edges and faces here. Select only edges. Copy that out. Now, one of the things, again, maybe I don't want those interior pieces. I think in this case, we might get lucky because these pieces, this geometry should all be touching. So if I 1, 2, 3, select all connected geometry, and this one was not. So let me 1, 2, 3. That actually is exactly what I want. So I'm going to hold the Shift key to reverse my selection, delete out that inside geometry, and then I'm going to group this, apply our color to it, and move it back over here. And again, maybe I will move this just 1 millimeter away or up, because this is just a visual way to bring attention to this assembly. You know, maybe I'm trying to draw attention here. And whether we want to do that in X-ray mode or not, it's just one way to isolate, bring attention here. This also is one of the things that comes up a lot. A lot of times I'm trying to select this assembly I just created and I come over here and I keep selecting the arm, having that hide as a keyboard shortcut is a quick way to, when you have multiple pieces on top of each other, now I have this selected and I'll just use my keyboard shortcut for unhide. But being able to hide and unhide is another way that is just, improve your selection techniques. Okay, so we've jumped around a lot, I know. I want to show one more example over here. I'm going to look at this straightforward and turn perspective off. But let's say we want to create a simplified version. This again is just another example of what we might do with some of these options. So I'm going to explode this just for simplicity. Select this, right click, select only, and down here, actually it's down below where you can see there's an option for border edges. And that's going to select just the border edges. I want to preserve the border edges actually, so I'm going to hold Shift to allow me to reverse that selection and then hit delete. And that creates this nice, simple outline. Quick way to create a simplified 2D component. All right. Admittedly, that was sort of just a jump all over the place with a lot of different selection methods. Obviously, you can combine so many of the selection toys and native and extensions in so many ways. It's fun and tricky to try and think of examples because they're just so unique to each situation. But that's why we just kind of ran through a couple. Hopefully there was something in there that you can use in your own work. Thank you as always for joining us. Be sure and like and subscribe. Please sure to let us know which selection methods or selection extensions you find useful, or just have that conversation as we all try to learn together. Otherwise, see y'all next time.